Business Studies lesson. My name is Tshidiso Tlhaka, and this lesson is brought to you by the Gauteng Department of Education in collaboration with Saipono Discovery Center. Today we look into Paper 2, Business Studies, Mid-Year Examination Revision. And the two main topics we look into is your business venture and business role. So this will prepare you for what you will be writing tomorrow. Now, learning outcomes. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to know the structure of the paper you will be writing tomorrow. Furthermore, you should know the main topics that are going to be assessed together with their subtopics. And what is going to be critical will be the exam preparation to say what approach do you use when you enter that exam and how do you answer, and most importantly, how do you interpret questions when you enter that examination center tomorrow. Now, let's start by looking into the first part. This is the structure of the paper. We have 3 sections, and for now, I'm going to focus on section A. Now, section A has what we call compulsory short questions, which are allocated 30 marks, and you should complete your section A in 20 minutes. And we have 2 main topics that are assessed there, which is your business roles and business venture. And then you also have the following questions, which is your multiple choice in your 1.1. And 1.2 will be, or your 1.2 will be choosing the correct word from the box that will be providing those words. And then you'll also have 1.3, which will be matching items, where you're expected to match column A and column B. So that would be your section A, and remember you only have 20 minutes, and if you are prepared, I believe you can complete your section A in 10 minutes. So that is the structure for your section A. And then as we move to section B, we have now 3 questions there, and you're expected to choose any 2 of the questions, and they're allocated 40 marks for each question. And I said you are supposed to choose 2, and the mark allocation there is 80, and the time expected, the time allocated there is 70 minutes. Now, question 2 will be having questions which will assess business venture as a main topic for 40 marks, and question 3 will have questions that will assess business roles for 40 marks, and then question 4 will have what we call a miscellaneous question, which has a total of 40 marks as well. And what do we mean by miscellaneous? We mean the combination of business role and business venture assessed together, and 20 marks is allocated to business venture and 20 marks will be allocated to business roles. So that is your question 4 over there. And remember, you are expected to choose questions. You are expected to choose only 2 questions in your section B. This is your question 2, 3, and 4. So you can choose 2, 3, or 2, 4, or 3, 4, or 3, 2. So it depends with you. Then we have section C. In your section C, the instruction is very clear. Choose only 1 question. And still your section C will assess your business venture under question 5. And then question 6 will assess business roles. And then for 40 marks, and you should know now that you have 30 minutes, and it's very clear you need to choose only 1 question. You can choose either question 5 or question 6. Now, let us look into the subtopics that we deal with in paper 2, and this will be your business venture, to say what is under business venture, what are the subtopics, and we'll also look into business role and say under business role, what do we have as subtopics. Now, paper 2 main topics. The first one is business venture, which will then assess question 2, 4, and 5 together with question 1, because question 1 is compulsory. Then we also have question 3, which will assess business role. So business role will assess question 3, 4, and 6. So this is how the structure is. You have question 2 here. You also have question 4 because of milliseniors, and you have question 5. So this will be the long question, the essay type. And then when you look into business roles, you'll be assessed under question 3, question 4, and question 6. So what is critical is to say, you cannot say you are choosing one main topic. You need to study everything, because whether you focus on business venture only or focus on business role only, but in your question 4, you are still going to have 20 marks from business roles and 20 marks from business ventures. So it is important for you to know all the subtopics so that you get your quality pass. So that is very, very critical. Now let us move to the subtopics under business ventures. What you get there is management and leadership. Here we look into the differences between leadership and management, and we also look into the leadership styles. Remember, we have 5 leadership styles, and we also look into what? The theories of leadership. Leadership, and there you have 3 leadership theories that you focus into, and you also have to look into the personal attitude in influencing the successful leadership. And then we also have investment securities, where you look into the functions of JSE, factors to be considered before making an investment decision. You also look into investment opportunities and their risks, and then look into the forms of investment. And what is critical here is that when I'm saying investment opportunities, you should know that we have 6. When I say forms of investment, you should know that we have 4. When I say factors to be considered before making an investment decision, you should know that we have 6 factors to be considered, and be in a position to start by naming them before you can explain what they entail. That way you have the prior knowledge, which will help you to answer any question. To say, if a question says identify the investment opportunity, you know that you can choose from mutual funds or stokvels. You know you can choose from 32 days notice account. You can choose from managed portfolio. You can choose from your life insurance or debenture. So all those are investment opportunities together with your business venture. And then you also have forms of investment. When the question says identify the form of investment, you should be in a position to say, I have 4 forms of investment, and this is your what? This is your RSA retail savings bond. This is your what? Again, we are talking about unit trust. We are talking about shares, and we are also talking about fixed deposits. So be in a position to start by naming them, and then focus on what they entail. You should know that with forms of investment, we are talking about the impact, for instance. And then under investment securities, we also talk about types of shares, to say we have 4 types of shares. And with the 4 types of shares, what are we talking about? We're talking about bonus, we are talking about founders, we are talking about ordinary and preference shares. And then you should know the types of preference shares, to say we have 8 types. But what is critical is for you to know the 4, because the 4 will help you to come up with the other 4. To say, you should know cumulative and add non-cumulative. You should add participating and add non-participating. You should know redeemable and add non-redeemable, and also add what we call convertible and add non-convertible. So what is important for you is to know the 4, and then you just add none for each. So those are your investment securities. And you should also know that simple and compound interest, and know how to calculate simple and compound interest, because definitely it will require you to calculate using a calculator. So it's critical for you to go into that exam having a calculator with you. Then we also have investment insurance. With investment insurance, that's where we teach you about how insurance can protect the business. Hence, we talk about non-compulsory insurance. We also talk about short-term, for example, examples of short-term insurance, examples of long-term, and also talk about the concepts of insurance, whereby we talk about over, under, and we talk about other aspects such as what now under concepts of insurance, over and under, average loss, reinstatement, and we also talk about your access as an investment concept. And we also have principles of insurance, whereby you should know the principle of indemnity, know the principle of security, the principle of utmost good faith, and insurable interest. Those are the 4. So be in a position to start by naming, so that you secure your pass. And then we will then look into non-compulsory insurance, advantages of insurance, and types of compulsory insurance. So with your types of compulsory insurance, you should know that we have road accident fund or road benefit scheme. We have a UIF or unemployment insurance fund, together with compensation fund or compensation for occupational injuries and disease. So be in a position to know those and know the differences between compulsory and non-compulsory insurance. So we are then covered when it comes to business venture paper 2, and we'll look into activities and look into typical questions that can be assessed. Now, looking into business rules, this is what is entailed in your business rules. The advantage is that you have only 2 subtopics: ethics and professionalism, which was covered in term 1, and you also have creative thinking and problem solving, which was also covered in term 1. So with that, you're done. You just have to focus into these 2 and know that you will then be secured if you push these 2. It means, again, a potential essay can either be creative thinking and problem solving or ethics and professionalism. So if you prepare the 2, you are secured, because this is your question 3, 4, and 6. So when you look into the business venture, this is your question 2, 4, and 5, and you will be secured. Now let's check this angle by starting with a typical essay question. To say, what can be the typical essay question for paper 2 mid-year examination? In your section C, they can assess the following under business venture. This is what they can assess. They can assess management and leadership, they can assess investment security, or they can assess investment insurance. So this is what they can assess as a possible what? Essay. Let us look into the typical essay questions there. These are the typical essay questions. Now, you have Peter and Deco. This is the preamble. Remember not to quote anything from the preamble, and ensure that you don't use anything from the preamble and put it into your essay, either as introduction, either as body, or your conclusion. What is on the question paper may not be used unless the instruction is saying quote. But in an essay, they'll never say quote. In an essay, they give you this preamble to just remind you of what the subtopic or the question is about. As they say, Peter and Teko are partners in P&T consultancy, and they are considering investing their surplus funds in the RSA retail savings bond or government retail savings bond in a preference share company listed on the JSE. Now, keeping the scenario above in mind, write an essay on the following aspects. The first question is outline the functions of the JSE. So your essay should have introduction, 2 points under introduction, then skip a line, then the first subheading should be outline the functions of JSE as a heading. Or you can say functions of JSE, then give us points under JSE, then move, skip a line, start with the second subheading. What is your second subheading? Describe 4 preference shares. I said, when they are saying describe 4, they didn't say describe cumulative, but you can choose any. You can choose any, because there is no limitation. They just say describe 4. Describe any 4 types of preferential. Then you describe the 4. And this question is a question that you should, for instance, if it comes and there's no limitation, it means if you write cumulative preference, you get 2 marks. And you'll get 2 marks again for the explanation. And it can be changed to what? Describe the investment opportunities. It can be changed to say describe the types of shares. So you should be ready. You should be ready. So when they say describe types of preference shares, you should know the 4. You can choose any 4. Cumulative, non-cumulative, participative, non-participative. That's 4. You are done. Then by just writing the names, you're going to get 2, 2, 2 for each, because it's 4, which will give you 8 marks. So be ready, and this is how I'm saying you should understand. Hence, I'm saying it's important to start by naming and start by categorizing your content. And then the other subheading will then be evaluate the impact of the RSA retail savings bond or government retail bonds for the investor. Then you look into the positives and negatives. In this question, whereby they're saying impact, it means you are allowed to provide positives only, or negatives only, or positives mixed with negatives. You will then be given the marks. Then as we proceed, the last subheading is to advise businesses on the differences between simple and compound interest. So this is a typical essay. I'm not saying it's coming. Let's be clear. I'm not saying it's coming, but I'm saying this is how you should go about the essay when you are analyzing it, when you are interpreting it. Then remember, you should have introduction and you should have conclusion. 1 point, 2 points in your, then here make sure that at least you have 5, 5, 5, 5. Then you're gonna score your 32 and go. Do not forget to research. Research an example that is linking with any of the content in your investment security so that you use it to make an essay and get 40 out of 40. To avoid getting 38 because you didn't have an example that was researched. And make sure that your example has the date to say when was it researched, where's the information coming from, and make sure that it's a real business that will then be researched or that will be taken from an article. So research from the article so that you develop and get your 40 marks. Then another typical essay can be on investment. This is question 5. It can be under what now? Investment insurance. So the preamble there, remember I said you don't take anything, don't quote anything, don't use it as an introduction, body, or conclusion. So insurance companies offer a variety of insurance products that are vital for businesses. So some businesses argue that insurance and assurance decreases their profits, while others feel that insurance products provide peace of mind for any eventuality. Businesses are also required to contribute to compulsory insurance. So there's no answer there. There's nothing you can use that will give you 2 marks. So do not quote from the preamble at all. Don't take any information. So the instruction is there now to say write an essay on the following aspects. The first question, distinguish between insurance and assurance. This is one of the easiest if it is to come. Insurance, what is insurance? Is based on the principle of what? Indemnity. What is assurance? Is based on the principle of what? Security. Then think about how you define the principle of indemnity. You say it is applicable to short term, so you also include it when you're differentiating between insurance and assurance. You say it is applicable to short term insurance, that is an insurance. But with assurance, it is applicable to long term insurance. So that is how you answer and you get your 8 marks just like that. So make sure that you have studied and you know what I'm talking about. Know your content, know the keywords that will help you to come up with a constructive sentence that will give you marks, and then avoid writing general knowledge. Use keywords that will help you remember the content. And then another subheading under the investment insurance can be discuss the 3 types of compulsory insurance. Describe the 3 types. If you write UIF, if you write unemployment, or that's UIF, and if you write road accident fund, and also write, for instance, COEDA, because I don't have space, you're just gonna get 2 marks before even explaining what these compulsory insurances they are about. So if you say now unemployment insurance is now applicable or will be claimed by employees who have been working and become unemployed for different reasons, you get your 2 marks for the explanation. So you get 2 marks for the explanation, 2 marks for the explanation, 2 marks for the explanation, and the total is 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 for such a subheading. Especially if they did not They said 3 because there's only 3 types of compulsory insurance. And then another one is elaborating on the meaning of average loss and explaining how it is calculated. So they have to explain that average loss will be applicable to what now? To the insured when goods are underinsured. So when goods are underinsured, then the business will activate average loss. And make sure that you write the formula to say it will be calculated in this way: amount insured over market value multiplied by damages. So use such to show that you have understanding of the content, and then also advise businesses on the advantages of what? Of insurance. Transfer the risk will give you 2 points and 4 marks. Transfer the risk from the insured to the insurer. Then the transfer of risk is subjected to terms and conditions. So you're using the same word, transfer. Transfer the risk from the insured to the insured. The transfer of risk is subjected to terms and conditions. Then there's the word protect, another key word. It protects the business against natural disasters. And then another word, protect, again, it protects the business against dishonest employees. So the keyword is protect. On the other 2, which is your 8 marks, the keyword is what? It's transfer. So these are the keywords that help you to understand the content. So again, an essay should have introduction, 2 points, skip a line, 4 subheadings, and where those subheadings, where do you take them? You take them from the question. And then you have your what? Conclusion. Then you have your conclusion. That's how you get your pass. That's your typical question 5. It can either be investment security or investment insurance. Now let us move to Section C for business roles, ethics and professionalism, or creative thinking. Let us see a typical essay there. A typical essay on ethics and professionalism can look into the following. It can be structured this way because I said exam preparation. So I'm making you familiar with how questions can be asked. I'm not saying tomorrow the essay is on ethics and professionalism, but I'm saying it has a possibility. Now, ethics and professionalism, the preamble. By now you should be knowing that you don't take anything from the preamble. So ethics and professionalism are good for the business and involves demonstrating respect for others in the workplace and how to be professional, responsible, and ethically effective in business practices should constantly be evaluated. Now, the instruction. I said we don't quote anything here. No quoting. We don't quote anything. Now, write an essay on the following aspects. That's where you start. The essay on the differences between ethical and professional behavior. You should know the differences. And then explain how businesses can use transparency and accountability as part of the King Code principles. Then advise businesses on how the following unethical businesses pose a challenge to their business operations. And what are those? Unfair advertising and their examples, pricing of goods in rural areas, and together with taxation or tax evasion. So you explain the challenges. And the follow-on question says, suggest ways in which businesses could deal with the above mentioned unethical business practices. So you should know the challenges for these unethical business practices and know how to deal with those challenges. So this is only the typical essay, but remember not to quote anything from the preamble. And then another typical essay on question 6 can be an essay on what now? Creative thinking and problem solving. Mojo Paints. The management of Mojo Paints wants to improve the quality of their paints because of various complaints from their customers. They have requested employees to generate new or creative ideas on how to improve their products to satisfy customers' needs. Now, the instruction, remember, we don't quote anything from the scenario or from the preamble because this is not a scenario. This here is not a scenario, but this is a preamble. This is a preamble, helps you to remember about the content. Write an essay in which you include the following aspects: distinguishing between decision making and problem solving. Then also explaining how Mojo Paints can apply Delphi and nominal group technique to solve their what? Problems. And then discussing the advantages of creative thinking and recommending practical ways in which the business may create an environment that stimulates creative thinking. So that is how they can ask, because they can either ask Delphi or nominal group, or force field or brainstorming to say, explain how it is applied. Then they can say, discuss the advantages or recommend ways in which the business or can create an environment that stimulates creative thinking. That's it. So you practice, you do well. The two essays that are potentially there, and one will be there, is either ethics and professionalism or creative thinking. So practice, 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 and all the best for tomorrow. As we proceed now, we look into section B, and I'll start with business venture, and the subtopic I start with there is what? Management and leadership. Let us remember, we have management and leadership. And with management and leadership, we should know the leadership styles first. So the first one is democratic. It's a democratic leadership style. What do we talk about there? What does the leader do? A democratic leader allows employees to participate in the decision-making process so that they feel what? Empowered. As you can see from the picture, this is the leader who would allow employees to participate in decision-making. But it doesn't mean the employees are making the decision on their own. It means they are participating, they are contributing ideas. When do you use this leadership style? When group members are skilled and waiting to share their ideas, you use democratic. And furthermore, when the leader does not have all the information needed to make a decision and employees have available what? Information to contribute. And when innovative and creative ideas are needed. Meaning, in a scenario, if you see anything that talks about group members being skilled, and when you see that the leader does not have the information to make a decision, but employees have the information, then you know that that leadership style is your democratic leadership style. Then as we proceed, we look into autocratic. An autocratic leader does not involve employees in decision making, as you can see from the picture. But when do you use that leadership style? You use that leadership styles when there's a crisis within the organization and it requires immediate action on the part of the leader. That's number one. And in the event of an emergency, that requires the leader to act immediately to avoid loss of life, or when there's a serious injury to the worker. For example, to evacuate the building in an event of fire, then the leader should use what? Autocratic. That leader cannot say when the business has fire, or the business has caught fire, and then the manager says, or the leader says, let us meet in the boardroom, and there's fire at that time, guys. There's fire. And then the manager says, let's sit in the bedroom and brainstorm ideas on how to get rid of the fire. Because when we brainstorm, the time will not allow. This is a crisis. This is an emergency. Therefore, in an emergency, a leader will make a decision without consulting. So that is when you use autocratic as a leader, because there's no time. There's an emergency. The business has just caught fire. So people have to evacuate before they can lose their lives. So that is when you use autocratic as a leader, when there's an emergency, when there's a crisis, and when all the information needed to solve the problem is there. Then, laissez-faire. A laissez-faire leader or a free-rein leader will delegate. What is to delegate? Is to give power to your subordinates or to the employees to say, I'm giving you the power to be the leader for the day. Why would the leader do that? It's because the leader at that time will be having trusting in the ability of the subordinates or workers. Because when we're talking about leadership style, we should understand one thing. We should understand that here we are talking about the relationship between a leader and their subordinate, or a leader and their workers. To say this person is leading the workers, or this person is leading the what? The employees. Therefore, in a laissez-faire, we are saying this leader will trust employees or subordinates or followers to be people who can take decisions in his absence or in her absence. So that's what we're talking about. Hence, we say delegates the decision making to employees that he or she trusts. And then the leader separates him or herself from the decision making process and allowing employees to make decisions in the best interest of the organization. Why is there trust there? You trust these employees as a leader because they have the skill, they have the expertise, and they've proven that you as a leader. Hence, you have trust in their ability to say they can make a decision without you as a leader. So when do you use this leadership style? You use this leadership style as a leader, and what is the name of the leadership style that talks about delegating, giving power to your leaders? Is the leader will be is laissez-faire. Therefore, laissez-faire will be used by a leader when the leader is occupied with more important aspects of the business, and delegation of the duties may improve the efficiency of the organization. That's one. Number two, when employees have what when employees are experienced in their chosen field and are what oftenly trusted or relied on by the leader to make responsible decisions. That's when you use the leadership style. Charismatic now. A charismatic leader uses his or her personality and charm. His personality and charm to influence the behavior and the actions of the employees. So this is a leader who has influence in terms of personality, in terms of how they do things, and people then will want to follow. So when you use this leadership style as a leader, when the organization wants to implement changes and use the leader to get the support of employees, and the leader wants to boost the morale of the employees who may be demotivated, and again is when they want to inspire loyalty and hard work amongst employees. Now, we proceed now to another one, which is transactional. With transactional, this is a leader that now uses what reward and punishment to drive employees towards business goals and targets. So when do you use this leadership style? When the leader wants employees to exceed target. So this leader will use a system of reward and punishment to say if you do well, you are rewarded, but if you don't do well, you will be punished. But then again, it says the business wants to maximize employees' performance. So when the business wants to improve the performance of the workers, to say if you produce 1,000 products in 2 days, you're going to receive 5,000 as a reward. What is going to happen there? The performance will be maximized. It will improve. What will make the performance to improve is the reward. Everyone would want to receive 5,000 for just working for 2 days. So that is what we mean there. And then deadlines have to be met on a short notice. So in a situation whereby there's a deadline that has to be met in short notice, the reward system will also contribute to the success. Then let us look into a possible exam questions on leadership styles. This is a possible exam. We have total computer softwares, and the instruction is clear. Read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. Total Computer Softwares specializes in developing new computer softwares for various computer programs. Cindy, the production manager, offers rewards to motivate employees who meet set targets. Tom, the marketing manager, uses charm to influence his team to work hard. Lebu, the administration manager, uses or gives a task without instructing how to do it. So meaning the employees are given a task, but they are not told how to complete. Why? Because they are trusted. Two, because these employees might be having experience. So already you're thinking about a particular leadership style there. Which leadership style talks about giving employees power to make decisions on their own without giving them instruction? It's clear. We spoke about it as fair. So the question now says identify the leadership styles used by Cindy, Tom, and Lim. Motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario for 9 marks. And then 2, evaluate the impact of one of the leadership styles that were identified in question 1 or in the question above for 6 marks. Now, what are your answers there? Already you had them because of what now? The scenario. Immediately the keyword is reward to motivate employees. You know that is transactional. This is transactional. Then immediately talks about charm. This becomes what now? Charismatic. Then when it talks about giving a task without instruction, that is laissez-faire. Then let us look into the solution. Cindy is using transactional 2 marks because the production manager offers rewards to motivate employees who meet set targets. That's 1 for motivation. Then Tom is using charismatic. Why? Because Tom is using charm to influence the team to work hard. That's 1 mark for motivation. Then Lewu is using laissez-faire or free rein. Why? Because the administrative manager, which is Lewu, gives a task without instructing the employees on how to do or complete it. So that gives you 9 marks. And the key words there is the idea of giving a task, because without trusting them, remember that is not on the notes. But you see now, it is guided by what is on the notes too. So because these employees are trusted, remember, this is what we call indirect questions. They are indirect because you have to identify the answer from the scenario. So make sure that you master the skill of identifying by mastering your content, because when these scenarios are developed, they use the notes, they use the DBE textbook to develop these scenarios. So make sure that you are familiar with what is on your learning resource, because that's what is used to now develop the scenario. Then that's how you get your 9 marks. But now let us talk about the impact now. The impact of these leadership styles. What are the positives there? For transactional, linking reward to targets will encourage workers to work efficiently and effectively. That's number one. And incentives offered to employees who exceed targets will increase the productivity levels of the workers. That's another advantage. And other employees are encouraged to work harder if they see fellow employees getting incentives. So those are the positives, because here we're talking about how you encourage your workers as a leader. Hence, you are using transactional to say, look, if you achieve this target, you get this reward. Therefore, when other employees see others receiving a reward, they also work towards achieving the same reward. So that's what we're talking about. The advantages of transactional to the business and to the leader now. To say the leader will achieve what? Will achieve great performance, will achieve efficiency, and will also achieve high productive levels of what? Workers, because the increased performance will be influenced by the reward. Everyone will be wanting to achieve the reward, therefore pushing themselves very hard. Then, what are the negatives there when you look into the transactional? Employees may feel demoralized. That's one. If they are punished for not meeting target. So you see now, the issue of reward and punishment is that here, the punishment will sometimes be linked with not achieving the target. So it means now the employee did not do any misconduct. The employee came to work early, but the employee is being punished for not achieving a target, even if they tried their level best. So that becomes now demoralizing to some employees. So that's why it becomes now a negative. And then another negative is that the leader may need to monitor the performance of employees to ensure that targets are met. And that will take the time of the leader, because remember, somewhere, somehow, the leader might have to go to other aspects of the business or deal with other aspects of the business. But when they are using transactional, it means they should always be there monitoring, checking if the employees are doing the work. So as we proceed, it also says now it will be a negative, because now it means other tasks will not be performed, because the manager or the leader will have to focus on checking whether the performance and the targets are being achieved. And then measuring the performance of workers constantly may detract the leader from performing other essential tasks within the business. So the leader might be distracted because he's busy looking into one task, the employees, not other parts, not the vision, not achieving other goals within the business. So that might be a challenge, because they want to monitor whether the reward will be given to the right person. So that will waste time and distract or detract the employee in performing other essential or important activities of the business. Then, charismatic, what are the advantages there? This is a leader that uses charm. They use charm to influence followers or workers. So, a leader communicates the vision or goal of the organization in a concise or clear manner that inspires confidence amongst what? Employees. That's one. Number two, employees are inspired by the energy or passion of the charismatic leader. So the energy, passion, and skill shown by this charismatic leader will inspire the employees, and then employees are motivated to exceed expectations and overcome their fear because of the charisma, the passion, the energy, and the skill they see from this charismatic leader. And then when you look into the negatives now, that a leader may promote his own personal interest instead of leading for the benefit of the organization. So that may be the negative, because the leader might be pushing their own agenda, which will be deviating from the vision of the business, maybe, or moving away from what the business wants to achieve, because they have the influence and they have the personality to drive others towards that particular goal or objective, which is now moving away from what the business wants to achieve. Remember, we're talking about a business, and a business has a vision and mission that they want to achieve. And then employees rely on the leader to improve their morale or motivation. So now the challenge is that employees rely on this leader to improve their morale or motivation. That is the challenge again, because if the leader now is not able to improve the morale of the employees then will not have the right morale or attitude, which will be a problem. And the organization may be over reliant on the presence of the leader as one, which could harm the organization if the leader leaves the organization and goes starts another organization or starts another business, because now it means that charm will not be there. Employees will not be motivated because that leader who was using their personality and charm very well will not be there. So the challenge here is that the business might be over reliant or might be over dependent on that personality, and that personality at some point would leave the organization or business. And as that leader leaves the organization, it means there's no one who will be pushing the motivation, there will be no one who will be providing that clear communication and pushing everyone to be motivated. So that can be a challenge. Then we look into laissez-faire. What are the positives there? The positives there is that employees are trusted and given responsibility of making decisions in the area of their expertise. So you get 2 marks for that, because here we're talking about the idea that these leaders can make a decision on their own. And then employees do not need to consult with the leader when making decisions that may benefit the organization. So this is to say now the trust is allowing employees to make decisions alone. Hence, it also says they are trusted and given the responsibility to make decisions in the area of their expertise. And then together with that, it says motivation levels of employees increases because the leader recognizes the ability or skills for decision to be taken. So that is the advantage, the motivation there to say these employees or this leader is giving us power without his presence. So it allows growth of some employees within the business, which will encourage motivation and increase the leader's ability and skills of the young employees or the employees who are given the leadership position at the time. Then what are the negatives? The negatives are the idea that there is uncertainty regarding what now decision making, which could influence the morale of employees in a negative way. So these employees who are given power to make a decision in the absence of the leader can now feel that they are not sure with the decision they are taking because they are not having the authority to make the decision. So that can make now some of the employees to have a negative morale towards others who are given the power to be leaders at that time. So employees could be hesitant to take decisive actions, which could affect the work performance. And conflict may arise between employees and their fellow team members if actions of the employees with strong personalities are not questioned. Then that is the challenge. Now, another possible question could be on leadership theories, whereby they say name the leadership theory that Tammy is applying. And they are saying here, Tammy allocate tasks to employees according to their level of maturity. Therefore, it's clear that Tammy is using a particular theory to help him to make such a decision. Another question says, discuss the leadership theory identified above. And another one says, explain the transformational leadership theory for 8 marks. Understand that when we are talking about leadership theories, there is no impact, meaning there will be no question that says explain the impact of leadership theories. It's not there. The only thing you should know is now how to apply these theories in the workplace and what do they mean and what are they informed or what are their basis as to leaders, because these theories help build leaders. To say situational theory will help a leader to think in a certain way about leadership style, to say they can change the characteristics of the leadership style looking into the situation. But when you're looking into transformational, it will help leaders to be in a position to know what to do in the process of changing aspects of the business. Therefore, know that we are not looking into what the impact when we are looking into leadership theories, but we are looking into the theory and what it entails. Then, the answer here should be situational. Situational theory is the answer here, 2 marks, because giving now tasks to employees according to their level of maturity makes you understand one thing. To say the leader is using the situation. To say this employee has experience, they can then be given a task and complete it before time because they have experience. And again, they're thinking about the difficulty of the task. To say, because this task is difficult, it can be given to this employee because this employee has the skills to deal with the difficult task. So that leader is using what? Situational leadership theory, which entails what now? That the leaders are required to manage employees under different conditions. Whether the employee is skilled or unskilled, they need to be managed and they need to be what now? Controlled. And different character traits are required to deal with each situation within the workplace. Therefore, the leader should show different characters. In a case whereby their skill ideas needed, use democratic. In a case of emergency, use autocratic. Hence, it says now the leader should make sure that a different leadership style would be adopted by the leader based on the prevailing circumstance at a particular time. Whatever that is prevailing, whatever that the business or the leader is facing, should be aligned with a particular character of leadership style. In an emergency, the leader should be autocratic. In a situation whereby employees are skilled and trusted, the leader should use laissez-faire. In a situation whereby employees are demoralized and demotivated, the leader should use transactional to try reward these employees so that their motivation could improve. So this is the prevailing situation. It can be employees who are demotivated, it can be employees who are having skill, it can be employees who want to share ideas, it can be an emergency situation in the workplace. So those can be the prevailing situations. Therefore, the leader should have to do what? To adapt their character in leadership. To say they cannot use one leadership style, they cannot be autocratic always, they cannot always be democratic, they cannot always be laissez-faire, they cannot forever be delegating, but they should also do what? Be autocratic at some point, be democratic at some point. Hence, we say now the leader should adopt based on the prevailing, based on what they are facing as a situation. In an emergency, autocratic. When employees are demotivated, transactional. So that is what the theory entails. That's what the theory will teach leaders. It is a theory that teaches leaders on how to use the situation and how to adapt from the situation. Then it also says effective leaders may adopt leadership styles which will ensure that goals of the organizations are achieved. So they'll have to analyze the situation in the business, analyze the employees to say these employees in this department will need this particular character for them to be effective and will need this character under this leadership style. And then the relationship between the leader and the employees should be based on what now? Values of trust, integrity, and respect. Now let us talk to the other aspect, which is what now? Transactional leadership theory, the explanation of transformational theory. With transformational leadership theory, the leadership theory would be adopted by the leader during the periods in which the organization is experiencing radical change, and when the leader may use his communication skills, passion, or interaction with employees to convince employees to accept changes that are planned in the organization. So the focus here is on how the business can, or how the leader can use his skills, passion, and interactions to do what now? To change the personality of employees, to change what the business is planning. So the theory teaches leaders about how to engage in the changing process, especially how they will influence the employees in the changing process. So the passion or change or personality of the leader should inspire followers to change their expectations, perceptions, and motivation so that they work towards a common goal that the business wants to change into. This is what the business wants to see as a change. But the change is seen by top management. But the leader should make employees at the lower level, at the middle level, to see the change. Through what? Through their personality, through proper communication. So that's what the theory is talking about. And then strategic thinking leaders develop a long-term vision for the organization and then have to sell it to subordinates or employees. So that's what transformational is about. Now let us look into investment securities. What should you know them? This is still under question 2, business venture. What you should know there is the explanations of the functions of Johannesburg Security Exchange. You should know the explanation. Know 5 points so that you are safe. And then you should further know what factors to be considered. How many do you have? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Liquidation, taxation, inflation rate, investment term, risk, and return on investment. Furthermore, you should know various types of investment opportunities and their risk. Therefore, you should know mutual funds, managed portfolio, venture capital, 32 days notice account, debenture, endowment or retirement annuity. So this is what is covered under your investment security. Furthermore, you should know how to identify the forms of investment from a given scenario and motivate your answer. So you should be in a position to explain the impact of RSA retail savings bond, unit trust, shares together with fixed deposit. Then when we look into the other aspects of investment security, you should know that there can be a question under types of shares. And how many types of shares do you have? You have ordinary shares, you have preference shares, you have bonus shares, and founders shares. So there can be a question that is scenario based, whereby they say now this is the scenario, identify the types of what shares, or there can be a statement that requires of you to identify the types of shares from statements that will be provided. To say maybe employees are the last to be or are the last to receive dividends. Identify the type of what? The type of share. Which share will be receiving dividends last? Is what now? The what? After the what? And it will further say after the what the commodity shares have received. You should know that that's bonus. That's founders shares. That's founders shares. So you can be asked to identify such. And then you also have types of preference shares. Name the types of preference shares. Types of preference shares. Remember, we have 8 types. And I said what is key here is for you to know what? Participating, cumulative, together with what? Redeemable and convertible. And then this is the first 4 you should know. 2, 3, and 4. And what do you add? Non-participating, non-cumulative, non-redeemable, and non-convertible. Then you are saved. You are saved, you know whatever. And then you should know that there can be a scenario question which expects of you to identify, and you should know the rights of ordinary and preference shares and differences between what now? Ordinary and preference shares. To say with ordinary shares will only receive dividends when profit is made, but now some of the types of preference shares will receive dividends whether the company has made profit or not. And you should also know that in a case of liquidation, ordinary shares will be the last to claim, but when you look into preference are the first to claim from any company asset in a case of liquidation. So that's ordinary and preference, the differences. And then you should also know the elaborate on the meaning of the following: concepts of insurance of investment, which is debenture, dividends, capital gain, simple and compound interest. What becomes very, very key there is the differences between simple and compound interest, the calculation of compound in and simple interest from a given scenario, and the last question can be recommend the best investment based on the calculation. So obviously the investment or the calculation that gives you more profit between or more interest between simple and compound becomes the best investment option. Then let us start now with the other structured way of doing things. This is now the two critical things that may lead to you making mistakes. Just know that with forms of investment, we have four. This is RSA, this is unit trust, shares, and investment security, and we focus on the impact. But with now investment opportunities, we have six. Here we have four. So we have six, which is stock funds, managed portfolio, 32 days notice account, debenture, business venture. This can either be life insurance, retirement policy, or endowment policy. And here we're talking about the meaning. You should know the meaning and the risk. But in this instance of the forms of investment, you should know the impact, which is the positives or the negatives. Now, as we proceed, the four forms of investment we have is your RSA retail savings bond, is your unit trust together with shares, and your fixed deposit. So these are the forms of investment. Now let me test if you know about your forms of investment. Answer this question for me for 5 minutes, and then I'll come back with the solutions to check if you know what are your forms of investment. Make it fast. So let me give you 5 minutes. I'll come back with the solutions. Thank you. Welcome back. Now we proceed with our typical activity on your forms of investment. Now, the instruction is very clear to you. Read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. Letabo inherited 50,000 from her late parents, and he chose an investment where he can earn interest twice a year. He also chose another investment where it will be easy to cash in when an investor needs money. The first question 1.1 says identify two forms of investment chosen by Letabo. Motivate your answer by quoting from the scenario above. And 1.2 says evaluate the impact of the forms of investment identified in question 1.1 for 8 marks. Now let us look into the answer there. With the use of the scenario, I will read the scenario again. Letabo inherited 50,000 from her late parents, and he chose an investment where he can earn interest twice a year. So that's the first part. That's where you identify which investment is that. There's only one form of investment that allows an investor to receive interest twice a year. But it doesn't mean when you quote, you're only going to quote this part. It means you have to quote the entire sentence from here coming to here. So this will be RSA Retail Savings Bond. Choose an investment where it can earn interest twice a year. 1 mark for that. Then also choose an investment where it will be easy to cash in when the investor needs money. That makes the form of investment to be unit trust, and 1 mark for the motivation. And you have your 6 marks just like that. But let us look into a follow-on question, which is very, very important, because now the follow-on question, let me go back and show you something. Now, if you have failed to identify the correct form of investment, it means you're going to lose your 8 marks, because you're going to evaluate the impact of the incorrect forms of investment. Now, let us look into it. What are the positives for RSA Retail Savings Bond? The advantage for investing in this form of investment is that you have guaranteed returns, as interest is fixed for the whole investment period. That's 1 mark for that and 1 mark for that. We split ticks. Why? Because the verb says evaluate. And then interest rates are market related and will attract more investors. Why? Because the interest rate will be linking to the what? Current market related rates that are there. So that becomes attractive. And then interest can be received twice a year, making it a viable investment option. But do you give this 2 marks? As a marker, I will not give it a 2 marks, because this we saw from the what? We saw this sentence or this phrase from what, guys? From the scenario. Therefore, we consider this to be what? Repetition. This is repetition. Then, another advantage for investing in this form of investment is that there's no charge, cost, or commissions payable in this type of investment. So that makes it now to be an advantage, because when you take 100,000 to the RSA Retail Savings Bond as a form of investment, it will be invested as the 100,000. Unlike when you take it to a bank, whereby you take 100,000, they will charge you the admin fees, they will charge you the cost and other commission fees for bringing the investment to them, which will reduce the original capital amount from 100 maybe to 97,000 or something, depending on the charges. So it makes it now an advantage to have no charges, costs, or commissions payable on this type of investment. Then, what are the negatives or disadvantages? The disadvantages is that now retail bonds cannot be ceded to banks as security for obtaining loans. Meaning, in a case whereby you want to borrow money from the bank and you are having this investment, you cannot use this investment form to borrow the other money from the bank. To say, some people would say, okay, borrow me 1 million. If I don't pay, you will take my RSA retail savings bond. We are saying that is not allowed according to the RSA retail savings bond. It cannot be used to seed another loan that is obtained from a financial or other financial institution. So a minimum of 1,000 must be invested, which may make it difficult for some small investors to accumulate. And then retail bonds are not freely transferable amongst what? Investors. And then penalties are charged for early withdrawals if savings are less than 12 months. So those can be the negatives. Now, unit trust, what are the positives there? The advantage is that with the unit trust is when now investors or different investors come together, put money into one unit trust, and the money is used to invest in different types of shares in the JSE, for instance. So the advantage is that now this money that is now pulled together for the different investors, it is what now? It is a number one, it is used by what now? It is controlled by the fund manager, who chooses from variety of shares options that are offered, which is low to high risk investments. And then the investments are now what? Managed according to a predetermined rules and procedures, which makes this investment a safe option. And it is managed by a fund manager who buys shares on the stock exchange. And remember that this fund manager is an expert and knows and reads the market on a daily basis, so that the performance will be kept at a safe for the investors. And then investors have free access to the funds and may convert them into cash in any event of an emergency. So this will not be given marks. Why? Because it's a repetition. We saw it from the scenario. And then what is the disadvantages here? It's because this investor and the unit trust, because it is now maybe when 5 investors, again I repeat, is when the investors' money is pulled together. And this is not one investor, maybe 5 investors contribute 1,000 each per month, and that money is taken and being used to be invested in what? In different types of what? Shares. So we are saying the disadvantage is that the money, because it's invested in shares, the share prices as a rule are subjected to fluctuations, which may increase the risk of these types of investment. And should this come as an essay, if unit trust comes in as an essay, you can talk about the elections, to say the elections had what now? An effect on the share prices in South Africa. And that was now broadcasted in different news and different what news platforms. So you can use that as your originality, so that you score the marks, to say there was what fluctuations in the share prices due to the elections. So you can use that to score originality, so that you get 40 out of 40 in your essay. And then it is not good for people who want to invest for a short period at all, because it means it has to take time before it can accumulate great interest. And then it's not also good for people who want to avoid risk at all costs, because you are investing in shares, and shares, we know that there are types of shares that are high risk and there are types of shares that are low risk. Then as we proceed, we also have now another type of question. This is on investment security. Identify the type of preference share represented by each of the statement below. We have 1.3.1 to 1.3.3. Now, shareholders are entitled to any surplus profit. What type of preference share is that? And then shareholders are compensated for past dividends that were not paid out when profits were too low to declare dividends. What type of preference share is that? And then shares are sold to shareholders at an option of being bought back on a certain condition. And what type of preference share is that? So when you are looking into the one that talks about surplus, you must be thinking about there's only one type of preference share that allows for a surplus profit to be shared after the fixed dividend has been shared. Because what is key is that we know that preference shares or shareholders would receive a fixed dividend, which means the amount will not change whether the company has made more profit or not. But with these types of preference shares, shareholders are entitled to share in any surplus profit. So this talks to what? Participating preference share, and it also has to be cumulative, because we are saying shareholders are compensated for past dividends that were not paid out. What are we saying is that a company has 12 months, which is the 12 months that we call a financial year. So in some of the financial years, dividends are not going to be declared, meaning they are not going to be given to the shareholders. So in a case whereby the previous financial year, the shareholders were not given the dividends, cumulative preference shareholders have the advantage, because if the company makes more profit in the following financial year, they need to be compensated for the past dividends that were not paid out. So that's what cumulative preference share is about. It talks to that, to say that the dividends will accumulate, will be added on, to say on the year that now they are declared, the shareholder whose accumulated preference share will be paid the past dividends that were not paid out. Then that's what we are talking about. Then that's your cumulative. Then with now redeemable preference, shareholders are sold. Shares are sold to shareholders at a what now option of being bought back on a certain condition. So this is what redeemable. This is redeemable because these shares can be bought back. Can be what? Bought back. Now we proceed. Then we look into investment insurance. Non-compulsory is the first part of your investment insurance. What should you know there? You should know the meaning of non-compulsory insurance. You should further know the meaning of what now? Of over-insurance, under-insurance, average loss, and reinstatement together with excess. Now, we then look into what? Application of the clause and know how to calculate so that you are compensated in a case the insured is under-insured. Then we also say explain differences between over and under insurance. What are the differences between over and under insurance? You should know that. And further, be in a position to know the differences between insurance and assurance and give practical examples. Furthermore, name the examples of short-term and name examples of long-term. So this is your exam guideline on what now? Investment insurance. And this is what you should know for you to get your proper 120 and more in tomorrow's paper. And then we also have principles of insurance. To say we have the principle of indemnity, principle of security, principle of utmost good faith, together with the principle of insurable interest. What should you know and how can you be assessed there? Be in a position to identify these principles from a given what now scenario and explain the above mentioned principle from the what now, from the whatever you shall have quoted from the scenario. So when you're looking into indemnity, you should know that it is applicable to short-term insurance, whereby the insured agrees to compensate the insured when there's proven loss or damage. And then security, we know that it is applicable to long-term insurance, whereby the insurer agrees to indemnify the insured or to pay a predetermined amount. To pay a predetermined what? Amount in an event of loss of life or when a certain age has been reached. And then utmost good faith, we're talking about the idea that the insured or the insurer should, the insured and the insurer should be honest when entering into the insurance contract. With insurable interest, the principle focuses on the idea that the insured has to prove that they stand to lose financially should the asset that they are insuring be lost or be non-existent. Then we also have advantages of insurance. The questions that can be assessed there is for you to know how to explain or discuss or outline. So either they say explain, outline, or discuss. You should know that you respond in the same way. You just provide the advantages of insurance. And then also explaining the meaning of insurable and non-insurable risk. There the focus is for you to know what can be insured and what cannot be insured. So with insurable risks, these are risks that the business is willing to insure and the insurance company is willing to insure. But non-insurable, these are risks that the business is not willing to insure because they cannot calculate the cost of the loss. And then we also have to give the examples of insurable and non-insurable. Then compulsory insurance. be in a position to explain the meaning of compulsory insurance, be in a position to differentiate between compulsory and non-compulsory, and also give practical examples. Thereafter, discuss the types of compulsory insurance, which is your unemployment insurance fund, road accident fund, and compensation for occupational injuries and disease act. And then also explain the benefits of UIF. Do not confuse them with the provisions of the PCEA. Just know that here we're talking about illness benefit, sick illness benefit, or we're talking about adoption benefit together with maternity benefit, and we're also having dependency benefits under your UIF as a benefit. And then you should be able to identify the compulsory insurance from a scenario, because that can be a typical question. Now we proceed to the key aspects over there. Is do not confuse the two. Do not confuse the principles of insurance with the concepts of insurance. So the concepts of insurance, we are talking about over insurance and under insurance, and we're also talking about average loss and reinstatement together with excess. But with the principles of insurance, we are talking about the principle of indemnity, the principle of security, together with the principle of utmost good faith and insurable interest. Therefore, we are saying here, let us check now possible exam questions on the following. Now let us check the possible what? Exam questions on the following questions. You will need a calculator, and I think I will also need a calculator. So I will ask the technicians here to bring a calculator to me, so that we are then in a position to calculate, to say, how do we deal with this? Now let us read the scenario below and answer questions that follow. And answer questions that follow. We have top trader who bought stock that is worth 400,000. And align there, the stock is worth 400,000. The stock is worth what? 400,000. But it is insured for 300,000. But it is insured for what? 300,000. Underline that is very, very important. It is insured for what? 300,000. And then a fire in the warehouse destroyed stock to the value of 60,000. That is the scenario. That is the situation. What is key is you have the value of stock, which is 400,000, and it is insured for what? 300,000. Now, let's go to the question. Name the insurance clause that is applicable to the scenario above. The clause should be very clear. There's only one clause. There's only one stipulation that is applicable when goods are under insured. When goods are what? Under insured. In this case, top trader has stock for 400,000, but decides to insure the stock for 300,000. Therefore, if the value of the stock is 400,000, but the insurance amount is 300,000, we are seeing something there. The value is not equal to the insurance amount. Therefore, we call this under insurance. I'm not answering the question. The question is asking to say, which clause is applicable? Now, there's only one clause. From your notes, there's only one clause under your concept of insurance. And the clause is what? Average clause. So that is the clause that is applicable here. The clause is what? Average clause. And it's the only clause that has the calculation. So if you see 1.2, it gives you a guideline already to say, okay, you need to calculate. And can you calculate for under insurance? No. Can you calculate for over insurance? No. You can only calculate for one, which is average clause. So sometimes the questions are giving you the answer already, because you know that when you're looking into investment insurance, there's only one aspect that requires of you to calculate. And this is your what? This is the what? The average clause. So the answer here is supposed to be what? Average loss, correct. But let's talk about now the calculation. The calculation is to say, you just start by calculating. No, you should know the formula. So the formula is amount insured over market value multiplied by damages. That's how now we are calculating how much is the amount insured is 400,000. So you're going to say 400. The amount insured in this case is it 400,000? Cannot be. That's a mistake from my side. It cannot be. The amount of insurance insured for, hence I said underline. You see the mistake you do when you don't underline. I underlined on my previous slide, but now that I did not underline, I made a mistake. I already talked about 400,000, and that is not the amount insured. And immediately you make that mistake, you're out. You have lost your marks. So make sure that you underline to say the amount insured is 300,000. Cannot be this one. It's supposed to be 300,000 over the stock worth, which is the market value. The value of stock is 400,000. Multiplied by what? The damages. How much are the damages? 60,000. And you say 60,000. So here we are saying insurance says it doesn't mean this person will not claim because they are underinsured. No, they will claim, but they will not receive the full amount of the claim. Why? Because they were underinsured. They were underinsured. So therefore, this is to say we're going to say 300,000 divided by 400,000 multiplied by 60,000. And the answer is supposed to be 45,000. So this is to say the insurance will only pay 45,000 to the insured, and the damage is 60,000, but the insurance is only going to pay how much? 45,000. Why? Because the insured was underinsured, was not paying the full amount of insurance, which is aligned to the value of the asset. Hence, they are not receiving the full amount, which is 60,000, but they are receiving 45, and they will remain responsible for the other amount of damages that were not paid up for because they were underinsured. Hence, the clause that is applicable is average clause. Hoping it makes sense. Can only be that, nothing else. Then we move to direct questions. You will be asked a lot of direct questions under what now? Under investment insurance. You can be asked to outline the importance of insurance, and this question is similar to saying explain the advantages of insurance. Then you will be asked to differentiate between over and under insurance. You will be asked to distinguish between insurance and assurance. You can also be asked to discuss any two principles of insurance, and this will be holding serious marks, and you need to be accurate, and the mark allocation will always be 6 or 4. 6 or 4. Now let us look into the first part, the importance of insurance. 1, this is also, it can also be asked as advantages of insurance. You should respond in the same way. The assessor can either say outline the importance, or they can say explain the advantages. Now we are saying the importance is transfer of risk from the insured to the insurance company. That's why it is important. Insurance is important because it transfers the risk from the insured, meaning the business, to the insurance company. That is number 1. Why is insurance important again? Is because the transfer of risk is subjected to terms and conditions of the insurance contract. That's another word now, advantage. And another advantage for the business is that it is important to have insurance because it protects the business against dishonest employees who might want to steal for the business. And then it also protects the business against losses due to the death of the debtor. A debtor can pass away, and if the debtor passes away, the business, if it has insured the debtor, they will then recover the amount that the debtor was owing to the business. That is why insurance is important. And insurance is important because it protects the business against theft or loss of stock caused by natural disasters. That is why insurance is important. And another reason why the insurance is important is that business assets, for example, this is your vehicles, equipment, or buildings, need to be insured against any damage or theft. These assets can be damaged, and as they are damaged, the business will then be secured if they have insurance because they can be compensated for the damages. So that is why insurance is important for the business. Now let us look into another question. Here we are looking into what? Differences between over and under insurance. Over insurance. Property or assets are insured for more than their market value. That's why we're saying over insurance, insured for more than their market value. Now, I will put a market value here to say this is the value of the asset. Let's say a house is worth what? 400,000. When we are saying it is over insured, we are saying it is insured for more than the market value. So it is insured for more. So this house is worth what? 400,000. But when you are over insured, you are going to insure it for 500,000. But let us look into under insurance. We are saying property or assets that are not insured for their full market value. What is the market value here? Remember the market value I said, the market value is 400,000. So when there is under insurance, we're saying property or assets that are not insured for their full market value. Therefore, it is not full. It is not 400,000. It is anything less than 400,000. So maybe the asset is insured for 350,000. So this is under insurance. But on this side, we are saying this is over, but we are saying the 350,000 is under. It is under the 400,000, but the 500,000, it is over the 400,000. So that is what we are talking about when we are saying over insurance and under insurance. So the insurer can choose to reinstate the insured. So in a case whereby the insured is over-insured, they are going to be reinstated, which is to return the insured to the same financial position before the occurrence of the loss. Is the financial position 500,000? No, the financial position will be the 400,000. But when we look into under insurance, the insurer will implement average loss. Hence, I said this is the only clause you have in your content under investment insurance, which will determine the amount to be paid. That's why we are going to use the formula amount insured over the what? Market value multiplied by the damages. Then that's that. And then businesses will not receive a payout larger than the value of the loss. So the value of the loss might be 400,000, so they're not going to receive 500,000. They're only going to receive the 400,000. And then businesses will only be paid out the amount that the goods or assets were insured for. Therefore, they're going to be paid a damage equivalent to 350,000. Then that is that. Then let us look into the other part, which is the differences between insurance and assurance. Insurance and assurance. Insurance is based on the principle of indemnity, the principle that is applicable to short-term insurance, where there will be indemnification if there's a proven loss or harm. Then you're going to be indemnified, which is to replace what is lost or harmed. But assurance is based on the principle of security or uncertainty, which is applicable to long-term insurance. Therefore, we are saying here in the principle of security, the insured undertakes to pay an agreed upon sum of money after a certain period has expired or on the death of the insured person, whichever that comes first, so that they can apply this principle of security. And what security are we talking about? We are talking about financial what? Security. To say when you have retired, when the employee is no longer working, they need financial security to keep up with their life. So it is specified. The specified event here is certain, but the time of the event is uncertain. So when you are looking into insurance, the insured transfers the cost of potential loss to the insurer at a premium, which is what they pay every month, It covers a specified event that may or may not occur. So those are the differences between insurance and assurance. Then the principles, we have the principle of indemnity, which is usually applicable to short-term insurance. And you saw it when we're looking into the differences between insurance and assurance. As the insured is compensated for a specified proven harm or loss. But we also have another principle, which is the principle of security, which is applicable to long-term insurance, where the insurer undertakes to pay out an agreed upon amount in an event of loss of life. Then we also have what? The principle of utmost good faith. Here the insured has to be honest in supplying details when entering into an insurance contract. And the last part is your what? Insurable interest. The insured must prove that he or she will suffer financial loss if the insured object is damaged or ceases to exist. Then we proceed with what now? Identifying compulsory insurance from the scenario, identifying the type of compulsory. These are the statements I spoke about. Let's see here. Natalie broke her leg when she was driving. Oh, Natalie broke her leg when her car collided with another car and she's demanding compensation. And then 2.2 says Pete lost his job due to retrenchment and he is claiming compensation from the Department of Labor. So the key thing here is that Pete lost his job, and the key thing here is that the car collided with another car. So that gives you an idea to say which compulsory insurance is applicable. Then Jamie Ltd ensures that workplace is safe to avoid unnecessary incidences. So already you have an idea, especially when we talk about accidents in the workplace. You know that we can have accidents in the workplace which are covered by a particular compulsory insurance, and accidents in the road which will be covered by a particular compulsory insurance. And when someone loses their job, we know that they will be covered by a particular compulsory insurance. It is compulsory to the business. Let's get it right. So the answer here will be road accident fund, unemployment insurance fund, and compensation for occupational injuries and disease act. Then we start with business rules. With business roles, we have two subtopics to look into. We have ethics and professionalism, which talks about behaving ethically, and creative thinking and problem solving, which talks about the role of the business in trying to achieve creative thinking and solving problems. Then ethics and professionalism talks to how the role of the business in making sure that they behave ethically and employees also behave ethical. The examination guideline says to us now, this is very critical, the meaning of ethical behavior together with professional behavior. But what becomes very, very critical is the differences between ethical and professional behavior. To say ethical behavior, it is the behavior that is expected of the business. But professional is the behavior that is expected of the worker. Then we have King Code principles to say we have transparency, accountability, and responsibility. We're talking about applications of these King Code principles to say the business should be transparent, accountable, and responsible. So it becomes very, very critical to also identify these principles from a given scenario or statement, explain how they apply, to say how these principles apply. So you need to master that. And then you should also recommend or advise ways in which professional, responsible, ethical, and effective business practices should be conducted. Do not separate your answers. Do not have a heading for do not, I repeat, do not separate your answers. Do not have a subheading for professional, responsible, ethical, and effective. Just have sentences. Point 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no separation that we want when we are marking this content. Please do not separate. They are not supposed to be separated. Then as we proceed now, we look into unethical business practices. We have unfair advertising, we have pricing of goods in rural areas, and we also have tax evasion. So identify, give from a given scenario, be in a position to identify tax evasion when the business is not trying, doesn't want to pay tax. Be in a position to identify pricing of goods in rural areas when they're inflating prices in rural areas or taking advantage of the economic knowledge of the people in the rural areas, and be in a position to identify and know examples of unfair advertising and explain the above mentioned unethical business practices and how they pose a challenge, and know how the business can deal with these challenges. And then unprofessional be in a position to identify, to say, unprofessional, these are behaviors that will be done by the worker. Sexual harassment, unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources, and abuse of work time, for instance. Be in a position to identify them from the scenario and explain how the above mentioned unprofessional business practices will pose a challenge or how the business can deal with such. Then, now let us look into the differences between ethical and professional behavior. I spoke about it to say the differences here is the idea that the ethical is the behavior that is expected of the business as they engage in the activities, and professional is the behavior that is expected of the workers of the business to say how should they behave. Hence we talk about abuse of work time. It is not professional when you do abuse of work time, when you use unauthorized workplace funds and resources together with the last part, which becomes now sexual harassment. It is the worker and is not expected of a worker. And then when we look into businesses should make sure that they do not do tax evasion, unfair advertising, and pricing of goods in rural areas. So we are saying it refers to what the principles of right or wrong in the society, meaning when the business is selling, what is wrong and right. Professional behavior refers to what is wrong or right in a business, to say workers should know that they should not abuse work time and do sexual harassment and unauthorized workplace use of workplace funds and resources. They need to conform to a set of values that are morally accepted. When they are selling, the business should conform, meaning they should comply to a set of values that are morally accepted by the society or the community or the people. And then it forms part of code of conduct to guide employees to act ethically. So as the business complies, we should know that who is now representing the business is the worker. Hence we say the ethical behavior should form part of code of conduct to guide employees so that they act ethically as well. But here when we look into professional behavior, we said it is what is wrong or right in the business, which is expected of the workers to say how should they behave. Hence it says it's a set of standards of expected behavior inside the business. How do you behave? There's things you are allowed to do at home as a worker, but you may not do them inside the business. And it's the application of the code of conduct of the professional or business that can be set by a professional association or that can be set by a business. Then now we look into unethical. Unethical, we have the three. Unfair advertising is unethical, pricing of goods is unethical, and tax evasion is unethical. But when we look into unprofessional, we have what? Sexual harassment, abuse of work time, unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. This is unprofessional. This is what the worker is not supposed to do. But unethical, this is what the business is not supposed to do because it is not allowed, it is not right. Then these are the examples of unethical business practices: giving goods false labeling or selling second-hand goods as new. Another one is examples such as inflating prices and charging higher for goods of inferior quality in the rural areas. Tax evasion is when businesses that do not declare all their income and falsifying the business financial statements. That's tax evasion. Those are examples. Possible questions on that. You're expected now to identify. Identify unprofessional business practices illustrated in each statement below. The director of K&Z Consulting uses business credit card to pay for personal expenses. So it means the business credit card is being used to pay personal expenses of the director. That is unprofessional because it means the director is using the resources of the business for personal use. And then the employees of Zamu Attorneys spends more time on social media or social networks during office hours than on their duties. So then this is considered to be what? Abuse of work time, because you're supposed to be working but you are busy on TikTok or on Facebook or on Instagram. You want to trend while you're supposed to be working. You're abusing work time. So the answers here is unauthorized use of workplace funds together with what? Abuse of work time. You cannot be trending while you're supposed to be working. So that is now abuse of work time. That is unprofessional. We cannot say the business is abusing work time. Who's working? Is the worker. Hence we say abuse of work time. Then as we proceed, we look into what now? the challenges of the identified unprofessional business practices. What are the challenges that will be posed by using the director using the workplace funds and resources to their personal use? Fund increases the cost of doing business and undermines the competitiveness of the business. Number two, it may affect the competitiveness of the what? Business. That's number two. Then it could discourage customers from what now? It could what discourage customers when prices are increased to absorb the losses that were caused by unauthorized use of workplace funds and resources. And another challenge could be discourages investors when the business receives bad publicity. Then another one now is what? The challenges of what now? The challenges of abuse of work time. Abuse of work time is a challenge. It may result in employees oftenly doing what? Abusing work time, so other employees may join in. An abuse of work time could result in losing customers or not meeting what deadlines because you're busy. I'm there as a customer, I'm hungry, I'm trying to buy bread, and you are busy on social media, on TikTok. I'm hungry, I'm going to leave because you know when you are hungry, you are very, very impatient. So the business will lose what? Customers. Let's say it's a restaurant. Businesses are gonna wait while people are busy on social media, TikToking, doing the challenges left and right, dancing there, you know those challenges. So that will be what now? A challenge because the business will then lose what? Customers. Yes, you'll get the likes, but the business will not make the profit. That's the challenge. Now, wasting time costs the business money and affects what? Productivity. And abuse of work time results in what? In a deadline, in a decline in profit, which could damage the financial wealth of the business because they are abusing work time and productivity is being affected. Then let us look into strategies now to deal with the unauthorized use of workplace what? Funds and resources. So the business can do what? The business should conduct regular audits. They must identify risk areas or vulnerable areas, and the business must educate employees about the impact of fraud, and the business must implement or introduce fraud prevention strategies. And also, they should limit the number of employees having access to the business funds or access. Not everyone should be allowed to have the credit card or any financial access that may affect the business. So you can know 4 points there and you will be sorted. Then looking into strategies to deal with abuse of work time, the business should or the manager should speak directly to those who abuse work time. That's a strategy to deal with those who abuse work time. Monitor employees to ensure that tasks are completed. So as someone is trying to do that challenge, as a manager, you can say, you're here to work. You speak directly to them and you monitor them so that the cell phone is not allowed. They are not allowed to have a cell phone while they are doing the work. And then remind employees that the profit will decrease, resulting in fewer incentives or bonus payouts. And they are doing that challenge, tell them that, yeah, you are doing the challenge, but you will not receive bonus because we will lose customers. You see now? So you are giving them the idea and an understanding. Then the conduct. The code of conduct or ethics should contain clear rules about the abuse of work time, and the business should conduct training on the content of the code of conduct or ethics. Then we look into another scenario whereby we are looking into now quoting from the scenario. A lot of content in paper 2 focuses on identifying, but we also have scenarios that will require you to quote from the scenario. We have Natasha Dekos. The manager of Natasha Dekos treats employees with respect by recognizing work well done. And Natasha Dekos ensures that all employees have access to equal opportunities and they engage in environmental awareness programs. Now, 3.4.1 quote 3 ways in which Natasha Dekos conducts businesses professionally, responsibly, and ethically for 3 months. And then explain other ways in which ND can conduct businesses professionally, responsibly, and ethically for 6 months. Now, we quote the solution there, the scenario again, but what are the answers? The way to show that the business is professional, responsible, and ethical is the idea that one, employees are shown respect by recognizing the work well done. So you need to quote the entire sentence, and ND also ensures that all employees have equal opportunities and they also engage in environmental awareness. That's what you quote, and this is how you're supposed to quote. The management of Natasha Dekos treats employees with respect by recognizing work well done. That's 1 mark. Another one is the second issue, which talks to access to equal opportunities. But remember, you quote the entire sentence. And then another one is they engage in environmental awareness. That's also another one, and then you get your 3 marks over there. Then, as we proceed, we look into the other ways. The mission statement should include values of what? Equality and respect. That shows ethicalness. Then they should treat employees with respect, dignity by recognizing the work well done. Do we give it marks? No, this is a repetition because we saw it from the scenario. Don't do that mistake. And then businesses should develop equity programs and promote strategies to ensure employees are treated equally regardless of their status, rank, or position. Then all workers should have access to equal opportunities. That's a repetition. We saw it from the scenario. Plan properly and put preventive measures in place for anything that has to do with being professional or ethical. And then as we proceed, we then look into problem solving. We then look into problem solving and also look into creative thinking. So problem solving, you start by knowing the meaning of problem solving and decision making. And what is critical is the differences between problem solving and decision making, because this is how they assess we want to check if you know what is problem solving and what is decision making. And then problem solving techniques. The following problem solving techniques from a given scenario statements are there. You should know how to identify them from the scenario. You should know Delphi will talk about experts. You should know force field. We'll talk about what now? We'll talk about changing. You should know brainstorming. We'll talk about ideas coming randomly. Then you should know nominal group. We'll talk about silent. We'll talk about silent brainstorming. So the change, the experts, those are your keywords. So you should know how to identify them. And what is key is to know how to apply these problem solving techniques with application. Just know 4 points for each. 4 points for Delphi, 4 points for force field, 4 points, 4 points, and 4 points. Then discussing the impact of the above. You need to discuss the impact. No 2 positives and 2 negatives, or we can say 3 positives and 3 negatives, so that we are secured. Then let us look into the other. Creative thinking. We should know what is creative thinking. Is the idea of thinking original or coming up with new ideas. And then you should know the advantages of creative thinking and know ways in which the business can create an environment that promotes creative thinking in the workplace. These are the possible questions that can be used to assess you. You can be expected to identify the problem solving techniques from the what scenario. Carl, for instance, gives his employees an opportunity to suggest ideas randomly, which are then written on the flip chart. And the management of Tony Consulting have listed the advantages and disadvantages of changing. So the pros and cons. Then the employees of Shoba Fashion Design should be requested to generate quietly as many ideas as possible, then share them with others. So here already we have randomly giving ideas. This is supposed to be brainstorming. Then with advantages and disadvantages before changing, this is supposed to be what? Force field analysis. Then when we look into the business now, employees of Shoba Design being requested to generate as many ideas as possible. There we are looking to what now? Silently. What is key is they're generating ideas quietly, even if they don't say silent, but they say quietly. So this is nominal group. Nominal group technique. So let's check the solutions. The solutions is brainstorming, correct. Force field, correct. And the nominal group. Now let us look into another possible questions that you can have to say now, explain the application. How do you apply problem solving techniques such as brainstorming? The business must define the problem clearly so that all participants understand it. The group must set a time limit for each brainstorming session. Furthermore, members should state the causes of the problem, and also people in the what now in the group must suggest ideas randomly, and all ideas must be written on the flip chart or shared online during an e-brainstorming session. Then each suggestion must be what used to inspire new thoughts or ideas from the group members. And then we look into application of force field. How do you apply it? Describe the current situation or problem and the desired situation and write it on the middle or on top for everyone to see. That is forceful, because why are we saying the current and the desired? The current is what the business is having, the desired is what they want to change into. Hence I said this talks to change. So also list the driving or list the pros and cons forces that will support or resist change, and also allocate the score to each force using numerical scale, whereby we are saying each reason for change that supports change. If it's strong, give it 5. If it's weak, give it 1. If it's in the middle, give it 3. So you are allocating score there, so that you will then use the score. Hence, they say weigh up the positives and negatives and decide if the project is viable, and choose the force with the highest score as a solution. If the project is viable, find ways to increase the forces for change, give it reasons so that we can see the need for the change. And then we also have nominal group, whereby we encourage the group to clearly define the problem and on how to improve the quality of the product due to various complaints, so that small groups can work on the same problem. If the group is too big, it must be split so that the employees are moved into smaller groups. Request each employee to silently brainstorm or generate as many ideas on its own on how quality of the product can be improved, and write them down on a piece of paper. And then after, in that small group, because here we're saying there's maybe 3 groups, and there's employees who meet, there's employees who meet, there's employees who meet. So these small groups individuals should then do what? Small brainstorm ideas alone. So all ideas will then be written on a what? Or all employees should be in that small group. All employees in the small group has the opportunity to give one of his or her idea or solution with a short sentence or explanation, and thereafter all ideas are written on the what? All ideas are written or solutions on a large sheet of paper and capture the solutions electronically. What is key is that you can write them in any order and you will get your marks. Then the last part is the following activities. When they say name 4 problem solving techniques, make sure that you talk about what? Identifying, defining, and identifying possible solutions to the problem, selecting the most appropriate alternative, developing an action plan, then implementing the suggested solution. Then we say differences between problem solving and decision making. You should know that a decision in this case, it is often done by one person or a member of senior management who makes the authoritarian, and problem solving is a problem can be solved by a group or team or an individual team member, and the person who's a senior manager will consider various alternatives before deciding on the best alternative. But in a problem solving situation, the group or team will identify various solutions. You see, solutions to a problem. But here we are saying identifying, considering various alternatives, and then choosing the best one. But here we are saying identifying various solutions, then critically evaluating each before talking about solving that problem. So the process of problem solving cycles, this process is part of the problem solving cycle, because the decision needs to be taken in each step. This is in your identifying, in your defining the problem, and so forth. So the process of analyzing a situation will help the group or team to identify strategies to bring about change. Let us look into this scenario now. This scenario is very clear. We had Kuruman traders or electronics. The owner of Kuruman Electronics sells electronic devices. So the owner allows, which is Albert, the owner allows Albert is employed to come up with alternative ways of doing things. Furthermore, Albert is also trained on innovative techniques. Quote 2 ways. The 2 ways are very clear. The owner allows Albert to come up with what? Alternative ways of doing things. Then furthermore, Albert is also trained on innovative thinking. So that is what? 1 and 2 marks. Then let's look into suggesting other ways in which now KE, which is Kuruman Electronics, can create an environment. Encouraging alternative ways of doing things will be repetition, but responding enthusiastically to all ideas will encourage people to come up with new ideas or creative thinking ideas. And then placing suggestion box around the workplace. Emphasizing the importance of creative thinking will ensure that all staff members know that management wants to hear their ideas. And then making time for brainstorming session to generate new ideas will also encourage that. For example, this can be regular workshops or encouraging more ideas or building on one another's idea. Then training staff on innovative thinking, this is a repetition, and encouraging job swipes within the organization will also encourage creative thinking in the workplace. So now, I know I was too fast for creative thinking because the time was against me, but that is what is on creative thinking. So what you can do is to go back to the video again later and check what aspect I try to address. Remember, I said for business venture, we have management and leadership, investment security, and we have investment insurance, and I touched everything. If you didn't have time, make sure that you go back to the video, watch again, try to train yourself on that. And then for business rules, the focus for tomorrow's papers will only be 2 topics. This is your ethics and professionalism and creative thinking. So those will be the focus for tomorrow's paper. You're basically having 5. Go nail it, go score too much points, because I know you are the best. So what is important is make sure that you know your content, you know your keywords, and start by being in a position to name. When we say name, when I say problem solving techniques, no, we have brainstorming, nominal group, force field, Delphi technique. Before we can talk about what they entail, before we can talk about their keywords. So that is what is critical. So with that being said, thank you for watching. And for tomorrow, all the best. Make sure that you score the pass. Remember, the minimum we want is 100. Make sure that you get that 100 plus so that you score more and more. So with that being said, thank you for watching. And for tomorrow, all the best. Get all the marks. And I know that you're going to make me proud. Thank you for watching.